Varnish on her mouth, lies in the frame. Museums don't sleep. They hold their breath and make you lower yours. When the last student groups clatter out to buses, and the gift shop tidies its postcards like alibis, the galleries change languages. Day speaks in audio guides and apologetic laughter, in soft shoes and explanations that begin with actually. Night speaks in HVAC hush and motion sensors that learn your stride, in the little green hearts of exit signs, in the dry whisper of canvas adjusting to dark. If you've never stood in a security control room at 2 in the morning with a grid of galleries looking back like patient animals, you don't know how a city can fold itself into frames and wait. I'm Owen, night security manager at the Beaumont. On my belt, a badge that persuades doors, a multi-tool that knows the difference between tight and cruel, a key to the roof I use like a prayer. In front of me, a wall of monitors, a console with a joystick that can make a stranger's intentions smaller by paying attention, a logbook where I write little truths in a hand my mother would recognize. I can tell by a shoulder's angle if a visitor intends to touch a brushstroke. I know from the sway of a guard's gaze whether he's memorizing a shift or letting his body do it. I can feel in the air if the building is tired of being looked at. My wife then, Alina, curated evenings that taught donors how to feel important without leaving smudges. Development director by title, stage magician by temperament, she wore a thin silk ribbon tied on the inside of her left wrist, deep blue, where my mouth could find it if we were allowed to be honest. On Wednesdays, when our orbits permitted, she'd badge through the loading dock and arrive in our dark like an apology that came early. She'd sit on the corner of my desk, one heel nudging a drawer closed with a sound I could hear in my bones, two fingers slipping under my belt on the pretense of rescuing a loose thread. I put my mouth in the notch below her collarbone, the little country where a voice gathers before it chooses a tone, and breathe until her shoulders changed professions. We were careful. Cameras forget nothing, and varnish remembers what touched it even if it was air. The first sign didn't raise its voice. It rearranged ordinary. At 01:06 the door contact for Gallery 14 Dutch, small, stubborn, recorded held 3S without a badge. At 01:08 a corridor cam blinked and found itself again like an eye too close to a mirror. At 01:11 housekeeping inventory noted 2 champagne splits removed from the event pantry with no event. A bottle of club soda returned like a bland confession. At 01:16 I found a plastic flute on the back counter of the conservation prep room drying upside down with a lipstick ring thin as a scratch. Wintergreen red, the peppermint kind that feels like snow if you believe in marketing. Alina's mouth is fig and smoke. Wintergreen belongs to choices you make for a camera. 2 nights later, the same minute put a hand around my throat and didn't squeeze. It just waited. Held 4S, the motion in the staff stairwell woke and forgot why it was awake. On the runner near the freight elevator, a single sequin crouched in the carpet like a star that had fallen into the wrong story. Sequins don't live here. We're wool and shadow and the clean stubbornness of cotton gloves. I'm not a cop. I am a priest of lines on floors and the ritual of closing time. But I believe in traces. In a training bin, we keep a bottle of UV developer for school tour. Harmless, patient, a way to show kids that their hands sing. That night, I kissed 3 invisible crescents into the building. Under the push bar of the Gallery 14 door, where an eager palm would lean. Along the underside of the balustrade above the atrium where bodies steady themselves while choosing their next mistake, and on the back edge of the touchscreen that controls the shades in the modern wing where a thumb can't help but land. I tied a single hair of monofilament across the staff door into the roof loggia. Nothing that could hurt, only a thin truth that would fall and die on the stone if disturbed. Then I looked at my reflection in a dark monitor and smiled the way you smile when you've decided which drawer of yourself you're not going to open. Alina came later, mouth amber, dress choosing its own fold. She sipped the sorry coffee from our machine, the kind that forgives, and pressed her palm on my sternum like she was checking the temperature of a painting just back from a cold truck. "Your building flirts," she said, not at me, "at the silent hall where marble likes to believe it is still a river." "It dreams," I said. "I give it rules until it sleeps." My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not claim. Her shoulders softened the way a plan does when it stops rehearsing and starts. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered, because nomming a thing helps keep the floor from tilting. "Open," she put the word down between us like a glass we had to hold with two hands. "Not chaos, not cruelty. No one from your team, no one who signs my checks. We say it before, not after. Protection is not optional, we're first. Our bed is a border. The Beaumont," her eyes moved through the cameras like they were chandeliers, "is sanctuary." I made a worthless joke about being the museum's sacristan, and her mouth absolved me. Morning gave me my moth back. The monofilament lay curled on the loggia stone like a dead syllable. Under black light the crescents grinned, door, rail, screen, exactly the heights of human hope. Behind the baseboard heater in the Dutch room, a clear earbud tip slept, little and disposable. The kind a man wears when he wants to hear himself be charming. Alina's hair obeys matte pins and a schedule. This was the brightness of a life filmed. His name arrived balanced on inevitability and a sponsor's smile. Dax Harrow, art lifestyle host of City After Dark, requests after-hours ambience for a segment on the seduction of museums. He had the handshake of a man who has never been told that an object is already complete. White sneakers that pronounced creative on our stone. "The night makes the frames confess," he told his videographer in a tone that had been practiced as carefully as our guards practice stillness. His eyes measured the distance from the staff door to the loggia, from the camera to whatever makes a human stray. At home the kettle sang its familiar hymn. Alina flattened her hand on the kitchen table like she was smoothing out tissue paper. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I won't bring that into your walls again. Not here." "What time?" I asked, man of logs trying to make a clock erase a feeling. "It's not the hour that cleans it," she said, and I loved and resented the precision. We lasted a month like citizens of a careful border. Alina told me before. I put the bottle of light back with the demonstrations. Dax floated in and out with his lens and his laugh and a kindness he rented by the hour. The building breathed like a chest unwrapped. Our pact felt possible. Thursday keeps receipts. 0106, held 5S0108 blink. 0111 flutes wintergreen again. On the stairwell cam, a silhouette paused to retie a shoelace with the posture of a man who hopes a future editor is watching. I did not call security to stage a morality play. I walked the rounds and watched the eyes of my guards and adjusted a camera angle that was a quarter-inch lazier than usual. I told my anger to sit like a trained dog. It did, badly but enough. We separated in a civilized way, like people who had decided not to compete for a spotlight. Alina took a one-bedroom over a florist where the morning deliveries changed the weather. She stole the singing kettle without asking because she knew I would let her take anything that made mornings easier. I kept the chipped mug, the roof key, the smell of varnish when it dries in the dark. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me under something you rarely open." "I label well," I said, and it wasn't a joke. Work stitched me with string that smells like dust and patience. A volunteer guard forgot and crossed his ankles on a stool. I uncrossed them with a story instead of a note. A visitor cried so quietly in front of a small painting of a river that I rerouted a tour away from her, because the river needed to be as large as it felt. A courier arrived late with a sculpture we had promised the morning. I signed and apologized to the bronze like it had feelings to hurt. She arrived at 0302 with a pelican case and a magnifying visor pushed up like a crown. Sira, painting's conservator, contractor, famous in that circle where names are traded slowly. She smelled like clean resin and rain you remember from a childhood, and her hands had the steady of someone who cooks with exact heat. On her left middle finger, a pale crescent scar curved like a comma where a frame once told a story wrong. She pressed her ear to a canvas and tapped the stretcher gently until the wood confessed a humidity complaint. "Respect, not force," she told the painting. The painting kept its secrets but stopped sulking. "Everything worth keeping," I said, angling my flashlight without being asked. When she took the driver from me, our fingers touched, and the electricity behaved itself. Our first kiss happened in the conservation studio while a 19th century sky watched us without needing to be the story. We had killed the fluorescence for color accuracy checks, honest enough, and left a small lamp breathing on the table. Sira's palm found my sternum like a pro testing a panel for warmth. I put my mouth under her ear, where breath negotiates with language, and the museum stayed upright while we tilted. She kept her eyes open, not a dare, a gratitude that the world went on doing its job while we did ours. My hand found the side of her throat, hello, not proof. We stepped apart before any motion log could name us. With Sira, precision put on tenderness like a smock that fit. She likes my thumb resting on the pulse inside her wrist. She likes my refusal to hurry. Sometimes she straddles my lap in the tiny glass office off the control room, blind down, monitors dimmed, the building breathing around us, and draws on my forearm with a fingernail the path from solvent to varnish to patience, turning a body into a process that could save a sky. We made rules the Beaumont could bless. Not in galleries, not under cameras. Not anywhere marble could be made to keep our secrets. Yes, in the studio after midnight. Yes, on the roof under the big steel letters when the city forgets to pretend. Yes, in the storage aisles between crates where wood smells like ships. If you came for revenge with an aria, I will waste your ticket. I could have printed logs and circled crescents and delivered them to a board that loves the theater of accountability. I could have taught Dax Harrow the difference between allowed and welcome. I could have made Alina learn what the frames knew for me. But a museum is a sanctuary for other people's looking. The kid who stares at a small, stubborn painting until it unlocks a room inside her doesn't need my anger to steal the light. The night guard who thinks of his mother when he checks the Madonna at 3 a.m. needs the hallway to hold still. Sira prefers me smelling like lemon soap and patience, not victory. Alina and I learned to talk like people who had not been enemies in the first place. She kept the contract to stage our winter gala, because she is excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she texts a picture of a basil plant trying hard. I send back a still from the atrium camera at 4:07. Empty marble, a mop bucket like a planet. "Proud of you," she wrote the night I stopped a visitor from touching a painting by telling him the story of the painter, not about rules. I let the words land. They didn't have teeth. Dax still appears when donors need to be told what they already want to hear. We crossed near the service elevator. He gave me that salute men learn from TV. "Museums are beds for secrets," he said to me like I was a microphone. "They're ledgers," I said. "We keep what people do to them, not what they say they feel." He smiled the smile of a man who confuses composure with invitation, and let a door be proud of closing. Nights went back to honest. A woman sat on a bench in front of a portrait and let her face change into someone else's for a while. I walked past slower than a law would require and faster than curiosity. A cleaner showed me a tiny paint flake at the base of a plinth with more reverence than some donors bring to checks. I logged it like a pearl. A light stuttered in Gallery 3 and then decided to behave. The building forgave. Sometimes I wake on the narrow cot in the break room at an hour my watch refuses to name. If Sierra's shin lies heavy across my thigh like a comma the sentence needed, I set my hand along her throat and wait for the small lift that means yes. The difference between an ending and a finish has a temperature. My palm reads it better than my mouth. Months after the bottle of light went back to the bin, the foundation hosted Glimmer, the gala that makes payment look like romance. I wore black because black forgives uplighting. Alina stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter in the way decisions sometimes are. "Is she gentle?" she asked without saying Sierra, because we finally know how to offer names like gifts, not like weapons. "She's exact," I said. "My religion's word for good, tenderness with a manual." "Be kind," she said, "not a blessing, an instruction." We touched glasses of water because water keeps your hands honest and the champagne had work to do elsewhere. Near the bronze, Dax told a circle that art is a mirror and night is the courage to look. They tipped him with attention he'd already priced. Let him keep it. I had a camera to adjust, a door to lock, a woman to meet in a room that smells like patience. Museums don't do morals. They do humidity and foot candles and 1,000 small rituals designed to keep strangers from breaking each other against beauty. To the new guard who will slip into my office at some bleak hour, eyes too bright, and ask what to do with the part of the job that isn't in the manual, I will say what I tell myself when the frames offer me a stage for my pride. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let a corridor carry your grievance. Keep evidence if you must. Refuse the robe. Remember the kid with the small, stubborn painting. She won't wait for you to forgive anyone before she needs the light to stay true. Before dawn, I take my last round like a hymn I learned with my feet. I run my palm along the cool stone of the loggia like I'm petting an old patient dog. All green, I tell the radio, which is another word for the place behind my ribs. The small LEDs give me their small, honest truths. I silence air handlers in the right order. I turn a key. The whole profession folded into one faithful click and push open the studio door. Sometimes Sierra is already there, visor perched, smelling like clean resin and sleep. She sets her palm on my sternum like a tech trusting her meter. I put my mouth under her ear, where breath has the good sense to go first. I keep the only oath I took without paperwork. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a conservation report. I won't use these rooms to stage revenge. If the log coughs again at 0106, I will see it. I will choose a drawer, the one with powder, or the one where patience sleeps rolled like canvas. Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on stone. It keeps me upright. And when the early crew hums in with their carts and the glass doors invite the city to behave itself for a few hours, I go back to my desk with varnish in my lungs, Sierra's hand in mine, and the quiet certainty that tonight I carried the truth at the right speed.